Taylor Swift. You actually want to hear this?
Oh, definitely.
Talking with famous people.
Taylor Swift, she was on a promotion someplace, and this guy gave her a pat on the ass, one of the DJs or something.
Uh-huh.
You remember the case?
I don't.
All right, so she sued him for evasion and tried to so forth and so on. She won the case. And she settled for $1, having
proved her point.
Huh?
Having proved her point.
Having proved her point.
Well, that's great.
And then I emailed my buddies and I said, okay, now we've established the price. If you want to pat her on the ass, it's going to cost you $1. I said, if you pat her twice, though, I suspect that the price will go up astronomically.
There's not really any means to adjudicate any question for fairness without appealing to rights, is there?
I don't know what fairness is. That is so amorphous a term that what's fair? I mean, what is fair is generally established between two people or two. It's a contractual thing. Okay. Is this a fair price? Yes. Then we've established that it is, in fact, fair. No, and then maybe then we have to renegotiate what fair is.
Right.
So it's a transactional term.
It's interesting the way that you take fairness and you say it's always determined in a particular situation. It's basically what you're saying, right? That there's not really any universal application of it because every situation in which fairness is decided between two individual parties.
Yeah, I don't think there's a platonic definition of fairness as an absolute. I'm not much on absolute except absolute zero or the speed of light or things like that. But in terms of personal or human interaction, absolutes are, I would think, basically impossible.
Let's talk about which values you personally uphold more when you're going through life. I mean, if they conflict, what do you think is more pressing to uphold? Is it efficacy, successfully getting shit accomplished, or is it fairness if they were to conflict?
That's be situational.
Okay, all right. If you don't like the singularity of a possible universal answer that's going to be all the time, because you just don't think there's ever a circumstance in life that that calls for that.
What are the absolutes? Well, the answer to every single guy that's jumped off the 5th story without some sort of navigational aid on the way down is pretty much the same. You know, I mean, so there are some things that are predictive. If I jump off the 5th story in my bathing suit only, then the odds are by the time I get to the 4th.9999, the answer will become immediately clear. I mean, that is predictive.
Right.
If I run a stoplight, then there are any number of alternatives. Some are more predictable than others, but not necessarily reliably predictive. For instance, I run a red light and there's nobody in the intersection.
So you see it as just a matter of probability.
I am very big on probability.
Okay.
And going back to the religious question, the probability of a deity who is taking notes in our conversation or has some other entity that takes the notes to transcribe later. When somebody asks you, why don't you believe in God? I said, the probability is very high that if there is a God, he is not anything interested in me.
So this is the sort of stuff, you talked to me about this stuff a lot when I was a little kid, even. I remember you talking to me about philosophical stuff, political stuff when I was pretty young. Do you remember doing that intentionally, or did it just sort of happen?
No, that's me. I like to play with this stuff. And you look back at the giants of the past. These guys established a algorithm for examining both in terms of Plato, the values, and Socrates, nature of the universe. Now, Ptolemy also in Egypt. But, I mean, the guys ended up not being right, but they set the algorithm for examining. So the unexamined life is, or something, I remember that.
Not worth living.
There's a lot of giants that we all are current social science that and unfortunately a lot of that is getting lost in the modern misuse of social media.
So what do you think about modern politics and social media and stuff? How do you think it's misused, or what do you think is going wrong with the way that people think about politics?
First of all, in spite of all of the flack, I think that there is a very, very small portion of America who gives a rat's patooey. And I take this, you look, Fox is always crowing about its number of viewers, prime time, 12, 15 million, whatever. And you look at the population of the United States at 350 million, and you're working on under 10% who are watching habitual watching any of the CNN that is altogether, you're probably looking at 15, 16% of the population. Now I grant you that there's kids under 6 who probably shouldn't be watching any of that, but
They're just
Right.
really unbelievable, I
So,
think.
so you think people are basically not interested in politics, therefore don't really have very informed opinions, and yet are being told over and over again it's their civic duty to vote anyway?
well, I always liked the term of the bandwagon going down the road and the trumpets going and people on the side standing, but the bandwagon goes on and the people remain standing here. And I think much of America is in the sidelines and it goes past and then it's over. Now, I would almost guarantee that even though they bring it up, this Mueller investigation, unless a bar is going to release it, that's Thursday, is going to be almost totally forgotten by the flack of the day.
Well, it's not very. It didn't find a smoking gun, so
There you go.
I mean, everybody needs to sort of let it go at that point, because it's either smoking gun or it's not. No smoking gun. What are you gonna do with it? It's just partisan crap as usual.
Yeah, but look at all the flack and anxiety and thing within the political class that this caused at the time, and the Democrats are going to go all the way down to defeat, and the Republicans are going to go all the way up to the polls. Nothing happened. It was a blip, and now it's so. Back to the point, I just don't think America is really beyond the core is much interested. They have their daily lives, they got their bills, they got the kids in school. Actually, this whole flack thing with the cheating getting into the colleges is hitting a lot more people's lives than whether Trump has an intruder.
Oh, he's gone. He's no longer there.
You know, because there are all of those people out there whose kid didn't get into college.
Right. So people are mad about that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, people are really upset about that.
So,
So
and
do you,
then Lori pleaded not guilty this morning, if you saw that.
I think that's very ill-advised of her, because I don't think she's not appreciating the sheer amount of anger in the average person about this,
Yeah,
and it's going to come bite her in the ass.
I think you're entirely correct. And the judge is going to be a lot less sympathetic
Right.
when it comes down to sentencing.
She should have done what Felicity Hoffman did and just plead guilty in the first place. In a situation like this, where she's just not well positioned to win a jury trial. She's not as well positioned as most people are in most situations, actually. She's less well positioned than your average criminal to win the jury trial. Okay, well, let's wrap this video up here. This is a good length. That was very interesting, and I think in general my audience is going to be interested to see the fact that this is why, in large part, I'm like I am. I talk about these kind of issues all the time. It's because my dad talked with me about them all the time. I was talked about these sort of things from very young, and obviously it's had a significant impact on the stuff I talk about today. So
Wait a minute, I got one more thing to say.
okay,
And that's really about you, because back to Earl Snyder, I don't know how he tracked us down in Europe. When we went to Canadian PX to get his watch, we sent it to an address. I wish I knew what the address was. So even after all these years, there may be some way we could track it down. I know that they were in Colorado, but you know, I don't even know if it was Aurora, which is where the drugstore was.
well, we're talking about tracking down the Snyders, right?
Yeah.
Okay, because I mean the thing is, the one thing I will say about that is I did find when I was messing with stuff back behind this piece of furniture here, I found a little book that Mom had written stuff in some time ago, I guess, and which included a big family tree, kind of this person's related to this person that way. It was back, I don't know, maybe a year or two ago when she was probably trying to make sure she was able to keep track of all that stuff. I was writing it all down. Anyway, I got it in my bag at home.
Talking with famous people.
And to clarify for the viewers, my dad gave me a picture this morning of my mom when she looked to be about 3 years old with my biological grandfather, whom I never met, and whom my biological grandmother left when took my mom and left him when my mom was very young, and she hadn't really seen him. She hadn't seen him since. So, and he died a long time ago now in a drunk driving accident. Regardless, it would be interesting to find a little bit more out about that side of my family. But at least Dad salvaged that picture and he gave it to me, and I took it home where it can be safe. Because Mom tends to crumple up those things and cut them up or throw them away or whatever. So I salvage them when I come across them, and Dad sets them aside for me as well.